So in UCL, your focus of research was
UCL International Development.
international development, let's say.
And my doctoral is in still political economy, but more diplomacy. Diplomacy on higher education. So I talk about world-class university policy implications.
Okay. Alright. Okay. So you'll be looking at Nadim's policies.
Nadim policy.
Kampus Merdeka.
Kampus Merdeka.
Mereka belajar sekarang bukan KKM sekarang.
Sekarang
KPM. Okay, ready. Okay. Thank you for coming, Masud ready. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Good morning, everyone. Today we have a special guest, but before I introduce the guest, we are at the Center for Policy Research. The name has changed from Center for Policy Research and International Studies, so focusing mainly on policy research. The voice is okay?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So we are now Center for Policy Research. The event is part of our greater program on International Nusantara Malay Archipelago Seminar Series. So Nusantara, as we have deliberated many times, is the civilizational space of a big part of Southeast Asia. So before there was Southeast Asia, there is Nusantara. So I'm still using a present tense that there is Nusantara, and there we will continue to have Nusantara. The only thing is Nusantara as a construct, right, as a civilization construct, has been perhaps reshaped and influenced by the colonial legacy. So it was once a bigger geographical space, if you will, so which extends from the Sumatra up to Philippines and from southern parts of what is now Indonesia to some parts of Indochina. So that's huge. It's quite huge. But now with the new framing of the world is Southeast Asia. Although Southeast Asia would be a mixture of other civilizational spaces. Right? So Nusantara is bigger than that. What we intend to do with our International Nusantara Malay Archipelago Seminar Series is to bring together different discourses, different narratives on the happenings and the realities and the perspectives of the communities in Nusantara, and as well as to bring about a sense of consciousness that we are one. Yeah? Just like China, right? Before Shi Huangdi, maybe they were Qin Shi Huang. Before him, they were desperate, disparate, or fragmented communities. But beginning from there, there's a unified China with one language and all that, right? So if the people of China has China, India has India, right? Europeans, right? So we, Nusantara, should reimagine ourselves or revive the sense of identity, the sense of heritage, the sense of history, the sense of spirituality. That's the whole idea. So bringing in scholars like Madam Ayu to re-educate ourselves about ourselves. So basically, that's the whole mission of the seminar series, Nusantara Malay Archipelago Seminar Series. Let me introduce you to our speaker today. So our speaker today has a very fascinating educational background. Bachelor's is on international relations from Universitas Hasanuddin, which is in Makassar, an important port during the colonial era. Right? It has a strong history. The whole Sulawesi has a strong history. The spread of Islam from Nusantara or Malay Archipelago to South Africa was initiated from a guru from Makassar, whose name is Sheikh Yusuf Makassari. So we can see the role of Sulawesi then is very crucial in spreading of the Nusantara people, as well the Nusantara as a center of Islam. And then she proceeded to pursuing her master's degree and not too far from my university in London, which is UCL, University College London, in the field of international development, which is similar to what I was doing as well. I'm development sociology, so international development. It's a field that overlaps with many other fields, right? In fact, the whole of international relations have become more or less becoming like a world studies, so to say, right? So we can put in many different fields under international relations. And now her doctorate in this international relations is with UNPAD, Universitas Pajajaran. It so happened that I also have a connection with Universitas Pajajaran, which is in Bandung. Right, I'm an adjunct professor there now. So we have some kind of shared history there. Aside from Nusantara, we have some shared history in terms of educational background. And it so happens her PhD is also on diplomacy on higher education. So it is very apt to have Madam Ayu Anatasya Rachman, right, to come over to address an important topic, which is weighing the strengths and weaknesses of President Joko Widodo's Indonesian foreign policy and practices. Quite a mouthful, with a special focus on Belt and Road Initiative, and probably other aspects as well. And now in Indonesia, the whole country, more or less, right, is gearing for the national election, which is in February 2024, right? So now there's all kinds of maneuvers and moves, the ninja maneuver, the solid maneuver, right? The go food maneuver, right? Amin aja dulu maneuver, right? So the combining of and not combining or coming together and the divorcing of powers, which is, I think, fascinating. Academically, it might not be good or bad, that's another story, but academically very fascinating, right, to look into that, right. Can't say much about China from that aspect. It's much more unified, stronger, united. So we do not have that problem in China. But this part of the world, we have that kind of problem. Or more, that kind of fun. So thank you very much, Madam Ayu. With that, we will pass the mic to Madam Ayu to deliberate on the topic. Dipersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Yang berbahagia, Professor Dr. Rifani, thank you very much for accepting a sudden request as I'm visiting Malaysia, especially in this northern part of Malaysia. So thank you so much. And also for all of the fellows who happen to be here and also want to discuss about one of the fascinating issues that is going on currently in Indonesia. But before that, maybe I'm going to address some of the points that Prof. Rifani has mentioned before. So my city, probably some of you haven't been to Sulawesi. Sulawesi is close to the Philippines, actually. We're closer to the Philippines than Jakarta. Unfortunately, because of the transportation restriction, we can only transit in Jakarta before we're going to Gorontalo. So from Malaysia, I have to transit to Jakarta and then to Gorontalo. There's no direct flight to Gorontalo. Hopefully in the future, there will be after this Belt and Road Initiative. And then second of all, I think what's fascinating about Gorontalo, it was one of the oldest cities in Sulawesi. So it was formed approximately 400 years ago. And if you take a look of the movement, the origin of people, it comes from Goa or Bugis people actually. So we are originated from the South Sulawesi. So it was very interesting how in Gorontalo it was 99% Muslims. So we are Muslim majority province. While next to Gorontalo is Manado or North Sulawesi, Sulawesi Utara, majority are Christian. So back in 2001, we are one province, but then Gorontalo decided to separate because of many different reasons. One of that is religion, but then not only the region, the distance between Gorontalo and the capital of Manado is take 10 hours by driving a car. So it's not possible for us, especially for the government servants, to go back and forth for some reason. So that's the reason why we develop into new provinces. And one of the most interesting thing about Indonesia, because it is an islands country basically. So when Prof. Rifani say about this kind of like idea, social construct about Nusantara, I think Indonesia was also formed as one of the idea of republic, right? Because back in our first president, Sukarno, was trying to convince us the idea of this republic. Republic derived from Plato, one of the philosophers' ideas about a nation, right? But the thing about Plato's republic is the leaders has to be philosophers.
Yeah.
And then the army, the army, it has to be one of the strongest. So we have to invest in security, right? So that's the idea of Plato's republic. But it's not relevant to Indonesia, as in right now there are lots of, as you know, developing countries, but the risk of corruptions, and when people taking over, it means power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupt absolutely. So there is a potential of authoritarian when you give the power to the smartest people in the room, there's still a chance for corruption. That's why there is an idea of making this digitalization transformation in Indonesia to lessen the number of corruptions in Indonesia. When everything is transparent, right? It's so hard for us to lie on paper, at least, because everything was easy to track. Okay, so back to my topic today. Where in this presentation, or at least in this share, I would love to share to you about one of the projects that received by Indonesia, along with some other countries, which is the Chinese investment, in infrastructures. Thanks. So let's talk a little bit about Indonesia and China relationship, so Indonesia has been one of the first countries recognize the One China policy. So back in 1950, we are one of the first who recognized Beijing as the capital of People's Republic of China. Meanwhile, other countries like the United States, Britain, and other Western allies recognize Taipei as the capital of Republic of China. So ever since 1950s, we have always been closer to People's Republics of China rather than the Republic of China, And then developed, especially under Sukarno, our first president. A little bit about the background of the story, about Sukarno, because at that moment, in 1950s, Sukarno's foreign policy was based on strong opposition against neo-colonialism and imperialism.
So he basically was very sensitive over issues, for example, like the formation of Malaysia, right? The formation of Federation of Malaysia, which was supported by the British, and the British taking over the British North Borneo, right? It was very sensitive to Sukarno because it's our borders. So Sukarno, I think at that moment that the British Empire tried to retain its influence to Indonesia. So that's why it was very sensitive issues at that moment. And along the time when Sukarno was in power, there's also one of the significant stories or moments. You have to know that in Sukarno, the army was one of the important part of his presidency because it really close with President Sukarno. Obviously, after the independency, you have to make sure that your country has enough army. When the colonies getting back to your country, so you have to be ready, right? So army are really close to Sukarno presidency. At the same time, there is a one party called Indonesian Communist Party, or PKI. So there is a competition between PKI and the army. So in this momentum, right, there is a rumor, alleged rumor, which was I think in its peak on the Gerakan 30 SPKI, where several generals were murdered, and it was accused to the dalang, or it was in charge, the people who was in charge is in PKI, and there is allegedly a rumor that PKI was backed by People Republics of China. So in that time, there is a shift in Indonesia and China relationship. Because the communist and communism was closely related to People's Republic of China. Then, under Suharto, the next president, the Indonesia and China diplomatic relationship was cut off for 2 decades. So not until early of 1990s, where there is a movement of students and civil society who want Suharto to finish his presidency. So after 32 years, then there is a reformation era. Suharto give back the power to parliament, and then there is an election, right? So at that moment, there is a revival of Indonesian China relationship as in foreign policy. So yeah, the bilateral relation improved markedly after 1998. Mind you, one of the interesting thing also is before 1998, you might heard about the anti-Chinese sentiment in Indonesia, but also at the same time under Suharto era, there is there's a capitalism. So basically Suharto is giving the policy, giving a special privilege to major Chinese ethnic group conglomerates in certain positions, economic positions in the country. Meanwhile, in the grassroots, there is a strong anti-Chinese sentiment. Chinese people were forced to naturalize themselves locally, change their names, and close their shops and etc. So I think there's a nuance, a weird nuance at that moment, which also have resulted into the conditions even until today. We still have this anti-Chinese sentiment, strongly derived from that moment in 1998. And Indonesia-China relations have flourished under the government of Joko Widodo, especially under Jokowi, because Jokowi served 2 terms. So under Jokowi, there is a huge focus on international development, especially economic development. So under Jokowi tried to change the regulations of foreign direct investment, which I will later tell you about the workers' law in Indonesia. Later in the slides. So President Joko Widodo's courting China's investment as for example, like major infrastructure projects, and it's also under intense criticism again because of the anti-Chinese sentiment. But not only that, especially because the workers if we take a look at the statistic, right, 60% of the workers are from China. So there is a huge concern about local workers' sustainability of livelihood. Next. Now, this is in 2022, where China take over Japan as the second largest investors of Indonesia. So right now there is Singapore, China, Hong Kong, Japan, Malaysia, USA, and others. Next. And then the main share of the foreign direct investment in mining and metal and on machinery and nickels. Have you heard about that? And the transportation, obviously, because there is, I will tell you in a second about some of the biggest projects of Belt and Road Initiative in Indonesia, which also, I think, result in strength and also weaknesses on its own, which we also will be discussed later on. Next. Now this is, I think, Belt and Road. If you never heard about it, basically it's an idea or it's a dream of Xi Jinping or Chinese leaders to revive the Jalur Sutra. That was very successful in the past, and he wants it to be back in the present time. That's why he tries to convince 61 countries in order to be in this project. However, I think later this year, early this year, there's 2 countries confirmed to back out from this project, which is Italy and also Italy. I believe it's Sri Lanka. After the debt, the huge debt that cannot be paid by the country, meaning that the Chinese government has to take over the project, which also makes it more complex. So if you take a look at the pink lines, it also connects the Central Asia, the East Asia, and also the Southeast Asia. And it aligned with Jokowi's mission to be a maritime fulcrum and to be able to have his power put on the map. That's also the reason why under present time he wants to kind of like interfere indirectly into this election thing, because he wants to make sure that there is a sustainability of project, that this project could succeed in the future. Next. Now, this is 4 different corridors in Indonesia for this Belt and Road projects. So Belt and Road Initiative including rail trains, and also ports, and also roads, obviously bridges. So basically main infrastructure of transportations and connection between cities and provinces in Indonesia. As you know, Indonesia is the largest archipelago. So for example, like now, the flight cost is very expensive. So one of the things that the government tried to convince the society is, if we succeed this mission, right, it would be more cheaper for the society to go from one city to another city, which makes it's easier for the economic activities to happen because there's a mobility of people going around. And I will take a look specifically on Sulawesi because that's where I came from. Next. Now, before that, so the BRI concept is a government to government. So it's a Chinese government to Indonesian government, for national government and local government. Or it also could be business to business. So Chinese businessmen to Indonesian businessmen as well. It could also be government to business. So these 2 schemes are basically the main schemes for this Belt and Road Initiative. If I can summarize one of the things from the BRI is the funding, right? You may wonder, where is the money coming from? Well, it's from the Chinese bank. So Chinese will fund your projects, and you have to accept terms. For example, like the technology that you're using, the workers that you're using, these kind of like terms that you have to be adhered to, so that the funding could be sustained in your country. This is one of the project, Jakarta-Bandung high-speed train, which officiated, I think, this year. I haven't tried it, but a lot of my friends have tried this. They call it Whoosh, whooshes come from the sound of the train when it passes, right? So in early 2015, Indonesia invited China to submit an alternative. This is quite a competition, like Indonesia as usual. So we tried to make a competition between Japan and China. So Japan submitted the proposal. We don't like it, right? So we offer the same project to China. Then China tried to compete the Japanese offers and propose lower costs and financing guaranteed by the China Development Bank or the CDB. So Japan is a really good offer, however, lack of fund. So there is a risk of unsustainability of the projects. Meanwhile, Chinese government can offer funding, so there's a guarantee of funding there. And even though Japan tried to like responded it back by covering 50%, but then Indonesia said it's not okay, we need more. And then finally in 2017, the China Development Bank signed a 3.96 billion loan agreement with PT Kereta Cepat. As the agreement, you have to cooperate with the local business or the national business, for this project, which is 60% owned by Indonesia and 40% owned by China.
To work on the high-speed projects. Next. Okay, so this is.
Okay, all right.
It's now on. Okay, so this is the second project. It's in Central Sulawesi, or it's in my island, in our island, Sulawesi. It's called Morowali Project Industrial Park. There are two projects there. The first one is the industrial estate. So you can see the value, the market value is 1.63 billion, the investment value, and it's between two companies from China and Indonesia. So mainly the products there are nickel and also carbon steel, and you can take a look there. There is a power plant. So one of the thing about the Belt and Road Initiative is they promise a knowledge transfer and technology transfer, right? And that's where the line kind of goes blur, because along the line, that's not so much as beautiful as it promises. Along the line, there's so many complexity involved and going around, which doesn't make this kind of goals easily fulfilled. So the second one is PT Gunbuster Nickel. This one is also quite a story, because it between one of the conglomerates in China and the company in Indonesia. Same as in Morowali Industrial Estate. It's also the
vision is to make nickel as one of the main.
Get ready with this. Okay. Just be ready with this one.
Yes, nickel. Previously, it was like raw material, raw nickel, right? But after kind of like sometimes the second term of Jokowi says you need to have half adding value. So you have to make it there is a smelter there. So there's not like a completely raw materials, but you giving the opportunities to adding more values to the product. So the price is increasing, right? Next. Now this is for Medan Kuala Namu Toll. So huge project, huge project. With the cost is 1,347 trillion, and the total construction is almost the same. 90% came from Chinese loans through the Exim Bank of China. So it's not everything coming from China Development Bank. There's some from private Chinese bank as well. And the construction of this toll road began in 2012, and right now it hasn't been finished. With some cases, especially environmental externalities, this road basically they divide it into three different projects, right? So some of the projects are now being suspended because of the permit problems from the local governments, because it hasn't passed the environmental assessment or feasibility. So that's one of the things. Next. This is waduk or dam, in one of the biggest waduk in Indonesia. So the project, which was initiated from President Sukarno and later reinforced under Jokowi. So the construction costs almost 4 trillion. through the state budget funds and 90% loan from China's Exim Bank. So if you take a look, the number of loans that we're taking from Chinese government, it's more than half, more than 50%, which causing a lot of concern among academics, right? Because the number of loans or debt Indonesia owe from China is getting increased year by year. Next.
Where is this, by the way? Is there?
Jati Gede is in, if I'm not mistaken, in Jawa Tengah, yeah?
Central Java. Central Java.
Next. Now, let's take a look at the strength. What is the strength of this project overall? First of all, as you know, that the president's introducing this kind of vision to be a global maritime fulcrum. Of course, in one side, it is reasonable because we are one of the, if not the largest archipelago in the region or more. And then supposedly we have to have some benefits out of this geographical position, yeah, this geopolitical position. But also the government want to expand new strategic canvas to Indo-Pacific region. Beside the ASEAN, they want to expand the influence towards the Micronesia, somewhere over the Papua New Guinea and more. Because as in right now, the space is like, sometimes they say it's US influence, but not really because US geographically too far from the Micronesia. So Indonesia see ourselves as the leader of the region. We have to make sure that we cover this Indo-Pacific region, which was not completely the focus of US, especially under Biden administration. There's a lack of interest towards this region and Middle East, yeah? Not after the Palestine and Israel, then US start to talk about Middle East. Before that, even early this year when they report the progress of US presidency, they just mentioned a lot about the European partners and not so much about the Middle East countries, and also especially the Indo-Pacific as a strategic partner for US. As in right now, the influence of the regions are more lenient towards China, because China involved more and it's more strategic. It's like you can't get away from this project. And meanwhile, US are trying to like balance its power through basically through loans, but I think it's different. The promises are the same, but just the commitment. We see that China's government are more endearing, are more committed to the development of developing countries. That's probably the reason why now we are more lenient to China. And then this BRI project is also stimulate economic activities and create new business opportunities. As I've mentioned before, again and again, for example, in Sulawesi, there's no railroads, we don't have train. So everything has to be taken through flight. You have to fly from one city to another city, probably take 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, right? And if this succeeded, if these huge giant projects succeeded, maybe in the next 20 years, some suggest that there will be a change in the habit of the consumers and the job distributions. As in right now, Indonesia is so Java-centric, and still, even if they try to move the capital into Borneo, right? But we think this just is on paper. Basically, we are so used to Jakarta and its all the convenience that it offers. So when you move the capital to somewhere else, I think it's just on paper and not really practical. This is my personal view. But then we still have to wait for the government's initiative, right? How to kind of like shift the focus from Jakarta to outer Jakarta. And then it's downstream to support various national development, as in right now, for example, you take a look the Jati Bening Dam, it's one of the national development planning. So one of the key performance indicators of the government has to fulfill that project. So it becomes more entangled. Not only that it is independent offer, but now it involves in your national development planning. You have to fulfill that. And also the renewable energy and road, rail transport, and etc. Maybe I can talk a little bit more about the renewable energy, because one of the promises of this Belt and Road Initiative is the transition to renewable energy, green economy. However, when they execute the plans, not so much considering the environmental externalities, because some of these projects are not allowed by the local government, mainly because they didn't pass the feasibility studies of the environment. So some of these, for example, like mainly they lean towards the coals. They try to force the idea, to push the idea of renewable energy, but at the same time, 40% of their source still use coals. So people are reluctant to see the commitment of this renewable energy thing from the Belt and Road Initiative. And of course, transfer of knowledge and technology. Next. This weakness. First of all, maybe the loss of control, yeah, because I think if you take a look at the similar scheme offered by IMF, for example, International Monetary Fund, it's different, right? World Bank, it's different because World Bank and IMF, they give you money and you can do whatever you want to do with it as long as you perform the key performance indicators, you fulfill that. But with this Belt and Road Initiative, it's very heavily instructed by China government. So they decide, how many workers and which company. It's not a competitive, fair, competitive, open, competitive for the companies, right? So the China government decide which company that will, work with your bridge or work with your railroads and etc. So there's a less control over the government. I'm going to give you an example of Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka right now, they couldn't pay the debt of this BRI, so they take a loan too much. And now the government of China taking over the whole projects. So some say it's economic development, but also others say it's a political mission to kind of like revive the influence of China after the loss in the Cold War back in 1990s. And then there's a dependency and debtor. There's a financial risk and long-term sustainability. As you know, countries also change presidency, right? And each presidency means different political views, different political ideology, different political priorities. So these huge, giant projects are facing the risk of sustainability, and then there's no way out. After you take the land of the society or the people there, you have to finish that, whether you want it or not. Otherwise, it's going to be abandoned and less productive. And then there's the negative externalities. As I mentioned before, there's an environmental impact. There's an increased carbon emission, mainly because they still use coals, right? And there's inequalities and disparities, especially access to resource. As I've mentioned before, 60% of the workers come from China. And as in right now, it's so difficult to make local workers be competitive towards China workers, right? Because number one, China's workers are more knowledgeable about the technology. So even the division of labor, so these Chinese workers are more into the strategic position and the local worker not so much. So this transfer of knowledge is being questioned by so many on how effective it is, and how sustainable it is, whether or not it's going to have a real impact once the China, give the project to Indonesia fully, or are we going to be dependent to China forever? Is also another question to explore. And there's a negative impression of the constituents. If you read some of the newspaper, when I think hundreds of Chinese workers arrive in Bandara of Central Sulawesi, there's a huge demonstration, strikes and protests because they view it as a threat, basically, because Indonesia, whether we like it or not, it's a developing country, we still fight for job distribution. So once there is somebody else taking over the space, this privilege, then it provokes some of the local people to want to get their rights. So that's what happened, not only in Central Sulawesi, but we've seen the same pattern over the region in Indonesia. And last but not least will be the lack of transparency of government in some of the BRI project. Mind you that this BRI project have layers of political views, yeah? Because the first one you get, okay, the national government agree, but then how about the local government? How about the indigenous people who are in that region, for example? How about the communities who have been lived there for so many years, right? So there are a lot of facets of these VRA project, and most of these projects are not being socialized enough to the society. That's also what angers the society, is because sometimes we just get the information, okay, the deal already done, and then we're waiting for some foreign investors to come here and to do the business. So it lacks of communication, public communication. Also, I think one of the factors why there is still a sentiment towards this project is because the government didn't put that much of effort to explain and to involve the public and the community so much in the project. The goal is for infrastructure, the building of infrastructure, not so much about the social part of it, the socio-economic part of it, and benefits. Next. Now, under President Jokowi, it turns out there's a survey which resulted into, this is a democracy index, yeah. Under President Jokowi, they say that it's lesser than the previous president, which is President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, or SBY. There are a lot of regulation. Maybe if you take a look Jokowi as a person, he was so great, so good, no flaws, right? It's really down to earth, love society so much. But if you take a look at the regulations around it, you would question some of his motives, because, for example, like one of the regulation is Undang-Undang ITE, or Electronic Information, regulation. So it says that, okay, so this regulation, one of the regulation, so if you critiques the government, critiques the leader, national leaders like the presidents or the member of parliament, you could be put in jail. So these kind of regulations happens under Jokowi, but not so much under previous president. So that's the reason why people are having this kind of weird impression towards our president, because we love him so much, but then the people around him not so much, because of the regulation that is also happened. And next. Yes, let's talk about the Omnibus law. Omnibus law is one of the I think the regulations that receive a lot of backlash and strikes coming from the society, especially laborers and workers. In all, I can say this is the deregulation for investment and foreign direct investment especially. So if there is a foreign business want to open an investment or a business in Indonesia, usually the bureaucracy is so heavy and you should fulfill many different criteria or feasibility studies, but not so much. It's much more easier. They say it's much more effective, but they're questionable, because right now, for example, like if you the Job Creation Act, or Omnibus, signed by the President Joko Widodo, it's in early 2020, late 2020, few years ago, and it was finalized, I think, not until last year. People are starting to realize the impact of this the law, to the social aspect of the society, and also among many criticism of Omnibus law, that is restrict the public's ability to consult on the challenge of the projects, which mainly causing environmental harms, right? So this is the issue. Environmental protection and environmental harms is the issue of the projects. Not only the Belt and Road Initiative, but also many different development projects facing the same risk of environmental protection or environmental harm. And this provision of law opened the door for deforestation. More deforestation, we keep losing our forests, especially in Kalimantan. After this IKN thing, they start to exploit more lands in Kalimantan. So we've seen the decrease of the land, the forest especially. And the flora of fauna, Indonesia is so rich for this diverse flora and fauna. Now we're being questioned as one of the countries that allow foreign direct investment to interfere into this environmental protection principle. And activists say about the law that it aimed to only attract investment into Indonesia, and then some of them are worse about the environment. So the last line that I bring to you is, majority of the people, especially from academics and activists, they're not so much liking the idea of this law. However, at the same time, lots of big companies and big corporates are loving this so much because they can invest more. They can attract more direct foreign investment or foreign direct investment more to Indonesia because of this law. Chinese are increased. I think a couple years ago it's only 200. Now it's 200 million, yeah. 200 million, and now it's 8.2 trillion. The investment value. I think it's for Indonesian perspective, it's worth it. The infrastructure, they can really see the roads, the bridge, they can really see it, but at the same time they couldn't really see what happens behind the desk, like the debt and this kind of financial risk that could happen anytime soon. Next. Yeah, I think that's all for the discussion. I hope to get more points from you. I can learn from you too, and maybe we can discuss some of your burning questions. Thank you so much. I will give the floor back to Professor.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's a very enlightening, very in-depth, comprehensive view and presentation you have shared with us. Really appreciate that. So this is instead of just talking about it in a general sense, in general terms, you zoom into specific projects. So that is something that I think we appreciate very much. So, and there are good statistics there that we also see. It is a dilemma apparently. There's the pros and cons. So we shall open the discussion to the floor, to everyone, the members of the floor. Silakan if you have questions, comments. Okay. Mas Reddy, silakan. You can ask in Bahasa, in English, in Chinese too.
Chinese?
Japanese.
Japanese?
Japanese.
No, I don't understand Japanese.
Madura. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Maybe we can bring in the food. Bring in the food, kita masukkan ya.
Thank you very much, Prof. Rehmani, for the opportunity. Thank you for Bu Ayu for the insightful presentation. Actually, I'm not in international relationship background academic, so I've learned a lot from your presentation regarding the Indonesian foreign policy under President Jokowi. But I'm still curious why President Jokowi chose China as the primary partner in economics. As we know, China is an economic giant to compete with other superpower countries like America or Russia. But the question is, why Indonesia is not choosing the Muslim world? For instance, Arabic countries, organized in OKI or IDB. I think, in my opinion, they have huge resources also. In the same time, we have shared cultural values in terms of Islam, for instance. I think it will be easily accepted by Indonesian people compared to China. It's identical with, communists or atheists. What's your opinion? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Langsung dijawab, Prof. Rehmani lagi.
Go ahead and respond first, maybe.
Okay. Maybe. So he was asking about the allies. Why don't we choose other Muslim countries? Right?
I have heard the part.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so to microphone? No. Okay, wait, this is a very interesting question. Yeah, also wondered, for how long, what makes us, what is the history behind the relationship, right? And then I find out that there are many layers into Indonesia and China relationship. Maybe I mentioned about the more economic side, that China is a giant economies in Asia at least, and it offers a lot more opportunities for funding, which could be offered by the Western countries, for example. Terima kasih. But especially from Muslim countries, yeah, like UAE, Qatar, Jordans, and other countries. I think number one is because we are systematically involved with China forever. So the cooperation is not only involved like something that you can cut off within 3 years or 2 years, but it is systematically involved to each countries. So as Indonesia, China is the strategic partner of Indonesia. Vice versa, Indonesia is also a strategic partner of China because Indonesia is the largest country in Southeast Asia. It means that strategic partnership with Indonesia means to retain influence in Southeast Asia. So basically, it's a mutual-ship relationship between Indonesia and China. And I think funding could be the first reason why, but also second, I think Indonesia are trying to be
one of the countries that is in non-aligned movement. So if we choose,
You changed the battery just now, right? This one. There's a new one. There's a new one.
kasihan nih Mas Hanif nih. It's okay Mas Hanif.
There's a new one. Yeah, it's the new battery.
Wrestling function.
Yeah, randomly.
So if you take a look of Middle Eastern countries, yes, they are Muslim majority, but they are more towards US allies. So most of them are US allies. Now, Indonesia are trying to be not neutral in a sense, but trying not to involve in this great power rivalries between US and also China, right? So consequently, Indonesia tried to involve in both with USA and with China. So the reason why I choose China over UAE, for example, is because it balances the power in the region. So if you just become reliant to one party, for example, like USA with its allies, with these Arab nations, then you will not have any particular alternatives once they pull out their support from you. But second of all, I agree with you. This is very potential. Before Saudi Arabia, now the prime minister is the son, the son of the predecessors of King Salman, yeah. And then he is very liberal. So we can take a look the example, some of the Saudi Arabia, the Arab Saudi foreign policy, especially on Palestine and Israel. We can take a look how reluctant the Arab world is towards this because of there is interest of USA that they try to also to protect. So the first layer is that. The second, I think we are depending to the community, Chinese descent in Indonesia. They are holding one of the biggest proportion of revenues and jobs in Indonesia. So if you take a look, rich people in Indonesia, the first 3 people will be Chinese descent.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think in sense of the economic powerhouse still derived from the Chinese descent. That's the reason why we could 100%, just cut off and choose one over the other. And also there is an issue of, and I think issue of more open, yeah. Previously, there's an anti-Chinese sentiment. Now there's not so much because people are trying to be open-minded. They see it as a different opportunities, more into pragmatic way of thinking. So there's no longer sentiment of religion whatsoever. We take a look the demographic of Indonesia, Gen Z, yeah. They do not really care about this history, what happened in the past. They are more into economic drives. So they start to look at job opportunities overseas, especially from China. So I have many data that Chinese companies offer a lot more revenue towards the Indonesian graduates compared to other countries. So basically, we're entangled in so many different levels within the domestic policies and also foreign policies that we cannot really choose one over the other. What we can do is now balancing the power between one over the other. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mas Reddy. Any follow-up question? You had questions, so Richard.
I think I want to add to that.
Go ahead.
Maybe
Go ahead.
just, regarding the questions, I think we also have to take into account that the push factors lah. Because comparing to China, they have China now with the BRI initiative, they have a vision, outward vision in the future, compared to the country that you mentioned, especially in the Middle East, where they are very inward looking. Yeah, of course, individually they are rich, like Qatar, but I don't think that they have interest or outward vision to spread certain I don't know, ideology or economic interest, for instance. So I think the religion as well is not the main factors or the main components. The pull factor, I think it's mostly economics, because when there was a discourse as well, if I'm not mistaken, when Arab Saudi did invest in some sectors in Indonesia, but of course some communities in Indonesia as well, especially because consider Arab Saudi represent certain Islamic like Wahhabi or Salafi. So it also creates some discomfort with the Indonesians several Islamic community as well. So I don't think that the religion is the main factors that we have to consider when talking about the economic development or investment. So that's for the previous to adding discussion to the previous questions. So, but based on your presentation, I also interesting to remind us that Indonesia have moved on from the dictatorship since 1998, even though we still have to deal with the oligarchy and the negative impacts of several economic crisis in 1998, for instance. But this problem brings the discussion, the classic discussion between whether we can put forward development at the expense of democracy. Because, like you mentioned, several laws, ITE, then Omnibus law, the ultimate law that can undermine what had been done by Indonesians pro-democracy movement. So at least for the second term of Jokowi, it shows that, and it shows by the index as well, that the democracy is declining. And yes, we need the infrastructure, right? The highway and everything that been built by Jokowi right now is supposed to be done during Suharto era when we had money from the oil boom during 1970s. Yeah, but Suharto never had a vision to build the infrastructure. But of course, Jokowi must do some things. Yeah, but of course, we are so concerned with how, I mean that some of the people, academic activists in Indonesia concerned with the debt and with how to run this project. And the last case you see in the Batam, for instance, this was very common during Suharto era, and it was the same perpetrators. It was from the Chinese government's investment as well. So the state used the violence and forced people to move out. So yeah, we it doesn't mean that they are against the developments. I think the discourse is also same here with in Penang with the PSR project. So this is create the debate against about whether we must put forward the development at the expense of our democracy and at the expense of the people's lives. So that's I would like to know as well what's your opinion on that. Thanks.
You want to take more questions or?
Oh, yeah.
You want to take more questions?
Sure.
Okay, all right. Eugene, you had questions now? But Jokowi,
I think after the speech, I will not just pursue that. Maybe some comments and can I communicate?
let me repeat just because he's so shy.
Mm.
Who take over Jokowi's
Oh.
foreign policy or legacy?
That's one of my concerns. Is just about as my experience as for the future, for the goodness of the country, will sometimes maintain the sustainability of the policy, could make harmony a steady growth in maybe a few decades. But if that election has already changed the president, and even though it means sometimes it's kind of like going to the controversial way to another way to our policy, and so it might could be some kind of challenge or maybe some kind of risk in the future.
Okay, maybe I should respond both. The first one is a very good reflection. Yeah, is the economic development should be running in expense of democracy. Wow, that's a deep one. At least, in my opinion, in Indonesia, it is a spectrum. It's a nuance, not so much yes or bold no, but we understand that the government are trying to fulfill the democracy ideals. For example, like basically the G20 involve more civil societies and they involve more discussion in the grassroots. They open more room for these micro, small, medium enterprises to join in. So not only about these big names in the market, right? But there's also the grassroots involvement of civil society. So I think what happens in Indonesia is the democracy, the top-down situations in Indonesia are trying to make sure that the base indicators of economic development are being fulfilled. That's the reason why they need strong leadership. For example, like in Gorontalo at least, yeah, if you want to have, I think anywhere in Indonesia or maybe in some developing countries, if you want to make sure that the society follow the regulation that you create, you must first create a popular decision. In order to create popular decision, you have to understand the needs of the society. And it goes along with, if you don't have a popular decision, the society will not like you and then maybe go against your regulation. So I think it's combinations of the people's power and also the government's power. So because if one without the other, that would be a collapse of either a region or a country. Let alone Indonesia. Indonesia is so dependent towards the voice of the people. For example, like we're actually looking for the election, right, in 2024. As in right now, you can take a look 3 candidates of Indonesian presidency. So there is Ganjar Pranowo, and there is Prabowo Subianto, and the other one is Anies Baswedan, right? So you can take a look for example, like Prabowo Subianto, he used to be the opponent of Jokowi in the previous term, strong opposition, right? Critiqued so much, and there are a lot of debate around his involvement in Jokowi's second term. So in the second term, he became the Ministry of Keamanan, yeah, Security. So Ministry of Security, taking over one of the Defense, yeah, Ministry of Defense. So taking over one of the important strategic business of Indonesia, which means the defense. So he used to have this kind of impression in media. He was so strong and bold, you know, and so timid, he's so strict. But now, because of the election in 2024, he now dances in media. He now tried to recreate his image that he's approachable by the society. He will not do that if the society does not, you know, do not matter that much. He do that because he understands that, as in right now, people's power is important. That's the reason also why he chose youngster to be the vice president's candidate, right? Because he understands the population of voters that will be running in 2024 will be more youngster, productive age, that will be the constituents. That's the reason why he go against all this backlash, even though all of these people, some of these people are heavily criticize him of being, you know, wrong, choosing the candidates of vice presidency. But he understands his way of thinking is very political, and he understand that this is not the game of like or not, or do not like. This is mainly politics, right? This is how many people in favor of your persona. That's the reason why he sells so much the image of this vice president, which is the son of Jokowi, which I think also add more nuance into this debate or this discussion. Other candidates, I think the more neutral one, probably Anies Baswedan, because he has this kind of clash with one of the main parties affiliated with him previously, the son of Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. So there's a lot involvement of parents and kids right now in the candidacy, right? And I think meaning that people powers, again, my point is people power still matters. That's the reason why politician tends to cater to the needs and the situations of the people right now. And people right now are entering the demographic bonus. That means there's more productive youngster are involved in the society. And it works. So far, in my personal opinion, I think more, there's a demography of maybe youngster in general, not so much academias or not so much like you or you're pursuing PhD or master, just normal youngster. They are very, I think, in favor with this Kaesang things and Gibran thing. And the drama involved this political phenomena is also interesting to see. So people don't like, you know, timid political things. People like some dramas in media, and this kind of situation, I think, is also adding to the interesting thing that will happen. We should be wait until February 2024. But talking about foreign policy, there will be a debate. I think it's within this week or next week. So 3 of the candidates will speak about the foreign politics. Besides Prabowo Subianto, there are many voices that are reluctant to see Ganjar Pranowo and Anies Baswedan talk about foreign politics because the background. They do not have the military background. And in Indonesia, military background are more vocal in terms of regionalism, in terms of international affairs. So yeah, I'm still personally still wait for the ideas of foreign policy coming from the 3 candidates. I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you very much.
Just to moderate further from what Eugene has asked. So the question of legacy, who would continue, right? Certainly, the Anies Baswedan is not seen as somebody who will continue Jokowi's policy. So it's either Prabowo or Ganjar, right? Do you see more towards Ganjar continuing vis-a-vis BRI, vis-a-vis foreign policy, yeah? Or Prabowo?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
at this point,
Wow.
we don't know, right?
I'm still figuring out,
Yeah.
but let me try my best to answer this question. Basically, we know that they're related to each other.
Yes.
Yeah, someone is somebody's kid, someone is somebody's sons-in-law. You know, everybody is related to the president, to Jokowi, right? If you take a look, Ganjar Pranowo, for example, he used to be under Jokowi's wing, not under Megawati and PDIP wing. Okay, so Jokowi as well used to be a very apa ya, penurut ya, very to Megawati and the PDIP. Loyal, yes,
Loyal.
it's very loyal towards this PDI and Megawati. Now, many of the analysts says that he wants to make sure that he has his own legacy by the end of his term. That's the reason why they see there's a shifting of relation between Megawati and Jokowi trying to establish his own path in influencing the domestic politics and foreign politics of Indonesia. So for me personally, Ganjar, if you want to go with the vision of these big ideas of maritime fulcrum and our loans, basically, that we have with these countries, I might say that Prabowo will have bigger chance just because his convenience, we also see there is a process. So we cannot just see the election as in the day of election, but what are the events that happening before that, right? For example, there's a change of regulation to cover one of the candidates. Sends some message, obviously, right? There is a lobbying and negotiation behind the scene, which people think impossible, but then it's possible. So everything right now is possible, but I think it goes more into the favor of Prabowo compared to Ganjar. I think what saved Ganjar is Mahfud MD because right now his electability, many people in favors of Mahfud MD because he's more into a political ethic. So his ethic about politics is so straight and bold and vocal, and he's so consistent that people see, okay, if he's the leader, then we'll have politics that is ethical compared to the previous, candidates or names that they are offering in the table. So Ganjar has a chance, but I think slightly below Prabowo and Gibran. Obviously, they're gonna get a huge chunk of voters because of the youngster thing issue. They say one of the jargon is injak kami untuk masa depan. So they say you can step on us, this older generation, for the youngster to go forward. I think it's catchy. People don't really see it as something politics, but I think it's very political. They want to convince the youngster that we do not want anything from you. We just want to do it for you. So I think it's like something here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Would you want to respond to Dr. Febri's comments just now?
Yeah, I think I
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Okay, anyone else has any comments or witty, anything? I myself have some thoughts about the BRI thing. There's a general shift in the world's perception about BRI. BRI being a new doctrine to subjugate. Yeah. Mainly the issue of the workers. The workers is a big sticking point for BRI to really expand. And they will say, look, between US and China and Japan, it's better off to choose US or Japan because they don't bring in their workers. And from the labor perspective, the labor is a strong force. They will say, well, we need the work. We can cook. Why do you bring in chefs inside? Huh? We can plow the land. Why do we need people to dig the holes for us? So that is a very strong shift in terms of popularity at the bottom. It seems that the BRI, I mean, there will be concern from the Chinese government, I guess. So there's a labor's perspective, which is more or less the base of Indonesian politics, the Wong Cilik kind of thing, right? The small people, remember even the NTT people talk about the layan, tani and ternak, kan, instead of apa ni? Yeah, instead of Nusantara Tenggara Timur, which is part of Indonesia. Apa ni, apa nanti Tuhan tolong ni.
Nasib tidak tentu.
Nasib tidak tentu nanti Tuhan tolong. Yeah, that's NTT. So these are the group of people that forms a large part of Indonesian electorate, so to say. So while the youth are strong, but these are the people who are
the backbone.
the backbone, and they do vote. The PDP depends on them. Gerindra depends on them, because the politics of Indonesia is very much still the politics of the people. So Pak Ghazali is our LSM, our NGO for migrant workers. Come, Pak Ghazali. So this one Pak Ghazali can relate. The issue of migrant workers is very much related to the labor issue.
Yeah.
So how do you see that moving forward, any discourse or narrative of changing that? If that part is the sticking point of PRI, for vis-a-vis Indonesia, right? I think the people are not against the infrastructure. They love the infrastructure, most of it. Although they would be critical of the Jakarta to Bandung because it doesn't reach Bandung to reach. Almost Bandung, but not Bandung yet. You got to take you got to take travel and go there and wait for another hour. And you reach outside of Jakarta, not in Jakarta yet. Then the whole idea of connectivity is to connect between two cities is not doing that. That's another story. But people like that infrastructure. So infrastructure is not the problem. The deficit is a problem of the intellectuals, right? Whoever owns whatever, the Wong Cilik doesn't get anything. But if you build roads, we get benefit, right? You build bridges, we get benefit. Who owns the country doesn't matter to us, right? You can own the country. Chinese can go own the country. Japanese can own the country. The Dutch can own the country. Whoever, doesn't really matter, as long as we can get the benefit. Right? So it's not a big concern. But the jobs are a big concern. So do you see any discussion among the diplomatic or maybe among the political elites to change that part of the PRI policy? Your thoughts on it?
Okay, so I think this is a really good question, especially about the laborers, the workers. I agree that, and then I've mentioned it, the weakness about the public involvement, especially in the grassroots, because these are so far away from everyday lives. These bridges, these rail trains, everything is so far away from our everyday lives. As in right now, we are still because under Jokowi, everything is there's no progress on making sure that there is a social safety net for our local workers, or at least there is a commitment to make more Indonesian workers compared to foreign workers, right? Right now, as I've mentioned, there's 60% of them. So it's predominantly foreign workers that is doing the projects in Indonesia. So under Jokowi, I think he is past his time. Now we're looking at 3 candidates and what they offers, right? So I believe that one of the candidates who kind of like giving the nuance of this is Anies Baswedan. Anies was along the way mentioned about the independency of the economic independency. So I believe economic independency along the way also means that we have to protect the local resources, which means local labor or local workers. And because Anies coming from an intellectual backgrounds, academic backgrounds, he understands that there is some risk that already been compensated under Jokowi, and the next president have to pay the price. So if you want to attract the voters who are Wong Cilik, you'll go to that issue.
Cilik is not a Chinese name. You mean the small Lao Bai Xin.
Normal people.
So there's an abnormal people. No, the normal people, everyday people.
It
Yeah.
sounds like a Chinese name, right?
Oh yeah, it's not Chinese name. Yeah. Wong Cilik. So he understand that. He understand that the need to kind of appeal to this small group. Not small. If you take a look of the number of laborers in Indonesia, it's a huge number. But most of them are maybe pragmatics or politically illiterate. They do not care about what happens in this top decision maker, the A1 information. They just care what are we getting out of these candidates. And exactly this candidate, one of the candidates, which is Anies, trying to appeal into that interest of this group. We see that right now in Indonesia there is a concept of if you want to be a president, you have to be nationalist, religious. So you have to be, fill into these categories of nationalists. It means that you are capable to know, to appeal to this Wong Cilik and people, Mak maybe, yeah, and Wong Cilik.
Yeah.
And then the other one is religious. You have to go to pesantren and you have to know the gurus and you have to be, approved by the guru under the dreams of, maybe the wangsit in Indonesia. I don't know if you know about wangsit. It's like revelation. It's like a revelation. So sometimes in pesantren they still have that. So they will know, the guru will know which candidates are more favorable for the country for the next 5 years. We still have that kind of wangsit. It's like a revelation. WANGSIT. Wangsit. Wangsit.
It's like a vision.
Yeah, vision. Okay,
about
maybe this one is the right
Wahyu,
one.
almost
Yeah,
like
Wahyu. Wahyu.
Yeah, revelation.
Revelation. Kalau Wahyu in Indonesia are more into direct God.
Oh, okay.
So it's not Wahyu. I'm afraid I'm gonna get backlash right here in Zoom. Yeah.
Okay,
No, Wahyu. No, Wahyu.
Only
It's
for
so-
prophet.
He only for prophet.
Yeah.
Wangsit is for kiai.
Yes, it's like a wangsit kiai. Yeah.
Dari bisikan.
Suara langit.
Suara langit. The words of apa? The sky.
Not quite there yet.
Not
Not quite
there.
there.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, so maybe Eugene cannot relate because there's no such a thing in China. Yeah. So we have that kind of elements in looking up for the presidency. So I think so far the PDIP and Prabowo has kind of like similar nuance of policies, and they try to appeal in the same group because Ganjar Pranowo has kids, and now the kids also speaking in media, and now the kids appealing to younger generation. Now they say, oh, he's so handsome, totally unrelated to political vision. But then that what's happened, right? So yeah, very interesting. But if you want to look at the Anies Baswedan, he started with the clash between him and the other calon candidate, which is the son of Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, yeah, AHY. Now he's being judged because of his he wants to be with this his own partner, which is Cak Imin, yeah. And Cak Imin has also a background of strong religious background. So I think this combination is beneficial, this religious and nationalist combination. But then, out of the, like I said before, my vision, my wangsit, my wangsit, probably because of the convenience of the things, they most likely try to push the constituents towards Prabowo rather than Anies. Anies appeals so many intellectuals basically in Indonesia, but then the challenge is also many as well for many groups of people trying to go with him. I hope that kind of like give you the answer to your question.
Thank you. That's cool. Yeah. At least I learned a new term, the wangsit.
Wangsit.
Pak Hussaini, ada pertanyaan?
Saya nggak ngikuti dari awal. Saya salah baca. Saya pikir dimulai jam 10.30, 11.30. Baru di tahun dibaca, 10.30. Ini 11.30. Salah baca ini.
Intinya Indonesia dan investasi China.
Intinya
Indonesia dan investasi China.
hubungan dan Cina.
Ada pertanyaan nggak?
Enggak.
Jokowi.
Materinya nanti nggak tahu apa yang jelas.
Membawakan materi.
Iya.
Materi itu nggak penting.
Penting.
Iya.
Kalau kita melihat sorry ya nggak bisa bahasa Inggris nih.
Nggak apa-apa.
Jadi hubungan nanti translatein deh nggak bisa. Antara
Subtitle langsung muncul.
Cina ini menurut saya adalah suatu negara yang pada awalnya tertutup, sengaja menutup diri, tapi sambil menutup diri adalah membuat suatu kemajuan yang luar biasa sekali, sehingga pada saatnya mereka sudah maju dalam segi pembangunan, dari segi segala hal macam, mungkin dengan sumber daya manusia yang maju, baru mereka membuka diri. Karena kesiapan itu sebenarnya sebagai contoh untuk negara-negara lain, bahwa menutup diri dari dunia lain itu sangat penting supaya kita tidak diinvestasi oleh negara-negara lain. Begitu Cina siap, ternyata Cina adalah negara yang sangat besar dengan ekonomi yang besar, sehingga mereka mengembangkan ekonominya itu untuk menguasai dunia. Dengan alasan bahwa penduduknya memang sangat luar biasa sekali. Sehingga penduduk-penduduk mereka itulah yang ada sebagian besar disebar di seluruh dunia dengan alasan investasi. Apakah strategi mereka ingin menguasai dunia? Saya rasa kemungkinan betul juga. Karena apa? Cina yang tidak seperti dulu ingin perang, tapi dia menjajah dengan ekonomi. Dan negara-negara berkembang ini secara tidak langsung memerlukan dana-dana yang sekarang ini mungkin dulu dari IMF dan negara bank dunia. Cina secara tidak langsung memberikan suatu kemudahan memberi pinjaman. Tapi efeknya mereka tidak dari awal meminta. Tapi efeknya nanti pada saat utang itu berlebih, baru mereka memberikan tekanan-tekanan sehingga negara-negara yang dibantu dengan sukarela atau dengan terpaksa akhirnya mengikuti apa keinginan Cina. Apakah Indonesia akan ke sana? Saya rasa mungkin Pak Jokowi ini terlena dengan keinginan yang asalnya mungkin Cina udah tahu bahwa Indonesia ini dipengaruhi oleh sifat-sifat feodal yang ditinggalkan oleh penjajah, sehingga wewenang kekuasaan yang diterima oleh para politik dijadikan bahan oleh Cina ini untuk menguasai Indonesia. Karena wewenang kekuasaan sekarang ini Indonesia negara republik, tapi cara prosesnya itu dengan kerajaan, jadi feodal itu masih ada. Sehingga mereka mempertahankan kekuasaan untuk memenuhi hasrat daripada politik mereka. Bukan untuk kepentingan rakyat, tapi kepentingan daripada mereka. Dan rata-rata ini tanpa disadari di Indonesia, bahwa ini sebenarnya dimanfaatkan oleh Cina sebenarnya. Tapi Cina tidak frontal, dia diam-diam saja. Minta apa dikasih, minta apa dikasih, minta apa dikasih, sehingga pada suatu saat untuk menghilangkan apa yang dikembalikan itu mereka tidak mampu, dan ini akan menjadi penjajahan ekonomi. Saat ini politik Indonesia, banyak orang-orang pinter, hanya karena kekuasaan feodal seperti Fahri Hamzah, ya kan, bahkan Anies Mata yang dulu terkenal, Yusril Izzah Mahendra, ini pun sekarang pemikirannya sudah bukan tentang Indonesia, tentang diri mereka sendiri. Mereka berani mengatakan sesuatu yang salah bahwa itu benar. Contoh putusan MK yang sekarang ini. Saya rasa rakyat kecil atau semua yang katanya apa namanya?
Contoh apa? Contohnya apa? What's the example?
Mahkamah Konstitusi yang memutuskan itu. Itu sebenarnya bukan hak dari mahkamah, tapi para pakar-pakar hukum yang sudah pinter, yang diakui, ternyata seperti mau MD yang kata sekarang ini politik hukum, hanya memberikan sesuatu wawasan aja, tidak berani bertindak. Karena ada kepentingan-kepentingan, karena kekuasaan politik feodal. Apa hubungannya dengan Cina? Inilah Cina manfaatkan. Mereka diberi apa saja, diberi kekuasaan. Bahwa pergerakan Cina ini berbahaya, mereka sekarang tidak merasa berbahaya karena kepentingan daripada para politik itu nyaman. Rakyat mau berontak dengan apa? Rakyat mau protes dengan apa? MPR pun sudah dibeli, para orang-orang pinter pun sudah pikirannya sudah Saya heran seorang Fahri Hamzah pun sudah pemikirannya mengatakan itu betul. Mahmud MD yang katanya vokal, tapi nggak ada apapun, cuma hanya retorika. Dan ini dimanfaatkan oleh China. China diam, pura-pura bodoh. Tapi mereka sebenarnya lagi menjebak. Sehingga itu sekarang itu sutra apa? Jalur sutra itu bahkan Joko sendiri mengakui bahwa mereka termasuk bagian dari jalur sutra. Dan ini sangat berbahaya sekali. EKN, sebenarnya semua ingin negara maju dengan berbagai cerita. Tapi Jokowi bukan soal membangun EKN itu ingin untuk Indonesia, tapi ingin sebagai feodalisme. Ini loh aku meninggalkan. Tapi apa fungsinya nggak ada. Sampai sekarang pun 1 tahun dari pelabuhan jalan tol ke arah EKN pun belum jelas mau dibangun atau enggak. Tapi investasi dari China yang dijual sampai 150 tahun. 150 tahun kita udah mati mungkin. Kita nggak tahu apa yang setelah itu berlaku. Undang-undang sekarang itu bukan untuk kepentingan rakyat, tapi untuk kepentingan para feodal itu. Makanya saya lebih suka, meskipun kata-kata feodal saya ini menjadikan saya jadi musuh oleh KBRI KJRI, karena selalu mengatakan bahwa pemerintah itu feodal, sehingga saya jadi lawan. Kenapa kamu kata feodal? Memang cara kalian feodal, bukan untuk rakyat, tapi untuk kepentingan jabatan. Itu aja. Jadi sekali lagi hubungan Cina dan Indonesia perlu berhati-hati. Sangat berhati-hati. Meskipun Cina itu pura-pura bodoh, pura-pura diem, tapi gepuknya nanti itu di belakang hari pada saat kemampuan Indonesia untuk membalikan finansial tidak mampu. Saat itulah baru kita akan ada bergening-bergening. Contoh Rempang sudah dengan berbagai ala yang jelas rakyat Indonesia sendiri diusir dari tanahnya. Itu jelas, tapi nggak ada yang membela. Dari peringkat politik sampai nggak ada yang membela rakyat, tapi pembelaan hanya retorika. Kemampuan untuk membalikan sesuatu itu tidak ada. Dari peringkat apapun juga. Ini berbahaya dan ini diinginkan China sebenarnya. Supaya kekuasaan uang itu sangat berpengaruh dalam keputusan politik. Makanya pernah saya bilang, suatu saat kalau ini berlaku terus, Indonesia itu hanya ada di peta. Namanya Indonesia. Tapi siapa yang menguasai politik dan ekonomi? Kembali seperti sudah contohkan Timur Timur. Timur Timur itu dari dulu ingin merdeka, tapi begitu merdeka, siapa yang menguasai ekonomi? Australia. Dulu mungkin sekarang menyesal Timur Timur itu kenapa nggak kembali ke lepas diri dari Indonesia. Suatu saat Indonesia akan menyesal. Kenapa ini berlaku? Sudah nggak bisa disalahkan kalau sesuatu yang berlaku itu aja. Sorry ya, Cina is the best. Tapi penjajahan ekonomi yang the best. Nggak salah, suatu negara untuk investasi negara lain nggak salah dengan kemampuan ekonomi. Semuanya investasi. Amerika investasi ke Irak, membentuk suatu kota di Irak. Nggak salah, karena tidak ada kemampuan dari PBB untuk mengatur dunia. Dan PBB sekarang pun tidak jelas kemana. Konflik Israel sama Gaza pun tidak jelas. Tidak ada kemampuan untuk mengerti itu aja. Jadi Cina the best sekarang. Diam tapi Masya Allah. Permainannya sangat halus.
Oke. Terima kasih. Pak Zani antara yang pemimpin masyarakat pekerja perantau, migrant workers lah istilahnya dulu. Tapi beliau di pertumbuhan dan persatuan.
Itu bajunya itu pertumbuhan
masyarakat Indonesia Pulau Pinang ya itu pertumbuhannya. Jadi NGO di Pulau Pinang itu. Silakan.
Wow, banyak ya.
Komennya panjang tuh.
Oke, mungkin ini Indonesia saja ya, atau Indonesia saja ya. Oke, tadi saya mau address terkait dengan kekuatan lunak atau kita bilang soft power dari Cina ya. Jadi betul, karena kalau kita datang ke Cina, ke Beijing tahun 1980-an, 70-an itu sangat kumuh sekali. Tapi sejak ada visi lompatan ekonomi atau economic leaps, kemudian Cina mulai kapitalisme. Dia mulai membuka ekonominya untuk kapitalisasi, untuk mengkapitalkan industrialisasi, kemudian program-program yang bisa. Jadi awalnya dia beresin urusan dalam negeri dulu, bagaimana dengan industri-industrinya, ada economic lead di dalamnya, mulai dari deregulasi ekonomi. Jadi yang tadinya sangat heavily bureaucratic, Cina mulai melepaskan regulasinya hanya untuk aspek ekonominya saja. Jadi Cina adalah situasi yang unik karena politiknya sangat komunis, only one China party, tapi ekonominya sangat liberal. It means, itu juga berarti bahwa sebenarnya ideologi itu adalah sebuah pilihan, bukan sesuatu yang harus kita ikuti seperti textbook, tapi sesuatu yang kita bisa ramu seperti kopi, mungkin gulanya lebih sedikit, ya, kopinya lebih banyak gitu, sehingga kita bisa menyeimbangkan rasanya supaya enak di kita gitu, jangan sampai rasanya ternyata nggak enak gitu. Nah itu yang menurut saya Cina berhasil lakukan adalah membaca apa prioritas negaranya. Oh oke, ekonomi, tapi dia tidak ingin melepaskan dalam arti kontrol terhadap aspek politik masyarakatnya, sehingga dari segi partai mereka cuma punya satu partai sekarang, yang terpilih juga dari partai komunis lagi gitu. Kemudian untuk yang kedua tadi saya juga terkait dengan feodal ya Prof ya. Sebenarnya menurut saya tadi saya sudah bahas juga dalam materi bagaimana Indonesia ini sebenarnya adalah sebuah warisan. Apa yang kita lihat di Jokowi sekarang adalah warisan dari sebuah keputusan politik yang panjang dari zaman Soekarno sampai dengan Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, dan kemudian dia itu memang disisakan utang gitu. Jadi dari Jokowi itu merasa oke, that is something normal. Utang itu normal untuk sebuah negara. Makanya kenapa Menteri Ekonominya Ibu Sri Mulyani merasa utang itu sesuatu yang biasa dan normal untuk sebuah negara karena ada productive debt, ada utang yang produktif. Dan harus berhati-hati apakah Belt and Road Initiative ini merupakan utang yang produktif. Karena utang yang produktif kan berarti utang yang menghasilkan kembali uang ya. Sementara ini kita terus membangun tanpa misalnya tol, katakanlah. Tol ini kan sekarang belum selesai nih. Belum ada pemasukan negara daripada tol ini. Begitu juga dengan program-program yang lain seperti waduk dan apa. Memang potensi ekonominya is there, huge potential of economic, tapi belum terjadi sekarang, belum bisa kita bilang sekarang ada gitu. Nah kalau kita sampai pada titik tidak bisa menyeimbangkan antara utang produktif dengan utang yang yang destruktif, nah nantinya bercampur dengan inflasi, dengan mungkin economic crisis, we don't know what happened right now in Russia dan Ukraine bisa berpengaruh, in Palestine dan Israel juga bisa berpengaruh. Jadi situasi global juga suatu saat membuat ekonomi Indonesia itu semakin vulnerable karena kita bergantung pada negara lain gitu basically. Minyak kita masih impor walaupun kita bagian dari OPEC dulu, surplus minyak pernah, tapi kita sudah dikeluarkan karena tidak surplus lagi, meaning that we still depend on other countries on our oil and gases. Jadi karena Indonesia sudah masuk dalam lingkaran ini, then we have to play smart. Dalam artian kita nggak bisa 100% menolak, tapi kita juga harus menyeimbangkan dengan strategi-strategi. Dan Jokowi sangat short term plan gitu. Makanya dia it's okay for him to say okay we can owe a debt to some countries karena pemikirannya hanya untuk di masa kepemimpinannya dia saja gitu. Let's the future handle the future lah gitu ya. Ya kan, urusan nanti lah itu debtnya kan. Cuman ternyata mungkin di akhir-akhir presidensi dia sadar ya, wah nggak bisa ini ya, karena katanya dia mau kembali lagi ke Solo jadi masyarakat biasa. You cannot do that if you are, ya kan? Kalau Anda mantan presiden, you cannot just expect you can be just a normal people after the presidency. You have to be something. Dan itu yang kayaknya yang mencoba diyakinkan oleh think tanknya Jokowi bahwa you have to have a legacy before you finish your terms. Makanya sekarang dia menggunakan berbagai cara untuk menjadi impression yang baik gitu untuk masyarakat. Dan salah satu kaki tangannya ya itu melalui keluarganya juga. Makanya kenapa ada in media right now we have this Jokowi politik dynasty that is happening in news as in right now. Dan meskipun Prabowo bilang pada saat itu ya nggak apa-apa dinasti, it's okay to have dynasty as long as dynasty serve the country. I mean that this is quite worrisome ya, karena this particular thinking leads to authoritarian, could be authoritarian one day. So we have to make sure that this kind of pemikiran seperti ini tuh harus diawasi dengan baik gitu. The system shouldn't be lacking because once the system is lacking, then this could turn into authoritarian. One day they will say that okay, it's okay because he's the leader. He wants the best for the country. He could do anything he wants. I think that is very risky right there. Yang ketiga, poin yang terakhir mungkin mengenai tadi international affairs, mengenai United Nations atau PBB. Mungkin sedikit penjelasan tentang PBB, bahwa PBB itu bukan pemimpin dunia, karena kita ada di situasi international situation itu adalah anarki. Anarki, it means there is no single authoritative definitive power yang menjadi leader dari semua negara. So this is anarchy. Everybody has sovereignty, one state, one vote under United Nations, right? Now, United Nations hanya bisa merekomendasikan yang akan menjadi referensi hukum internasional. So these United Nations cannot just forcing other countries to do certain things, but other countries should agree first. Then the regulations apply gitu. Hukum internasionalnya bisa diterapkan kalau negaranya mau gitu. Tapi kalau negaranya nggak mau ya hanya akan berakhir sebagai ratifikasi saja. Ratifikasi means agree idealsnya, tapi implementasinya kembali lagi ke negara masing-masing. Itulah yang terjadi di Palestina dan Israel. Kenapa tidak bisa berbuat banyak? Karena lagi-lagi mereka tidak bisa memaksa salah satu negara untuk datang ke international court gitu ya, ICC atau ICG, tanpa ada agree gitu, the person atau the leaders, the alleged leaders itu agree untuk come into the court and do the court gitu ya. Mungkin itu yang bisa saya share.
Mantap. One final question from me though. Kalau ada, nggak ada, masih ada comment? One final question from me. Actually two. One is a simple question. Among the moving forward, post Jokowi, moving forward of foreign affairs, foreign policy. Yang manakah kandidat kombinasi kandidat, which group of candidates, go food atau Ogil, Prabowo Gibran,
Singkatannya ya.
atau campur. Amin aja dulu. Which one do you see would be a friendliest candidate to Malaysia?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
from
was
Malaysia.
thinking different direction, but then okay, to Malaysia.
To Malaysia,
Yeah.
right. To Malaysia.
Malaysia.
And the other one, kind of a follow-up from what Eugene asked just now, but it's more my concern. Which one will pursue a different type of development? Not the, capitalist-led globalization, or a different type of development. From what I heard, I'm not sure they have. I'd like to know your thoughts. So those.
Okay.
Maybe it's one is simpler, the other one is more complex. Maybe.
Wow, both are complex.
Both are complex. Yeah.
Okay. First one, which one will be friendlier to Malaysia? Yeah. The composition, you mean like I could take one person and then the other from the.
Sure, go ahead.
Can I have that combination?
You can have it.
Number one, I think Prabowo is still on the list because he understands the foreign affairs and how the relations between Indonesia and Malaysia keep changing over the time, and it becomes better and better under the Southeast Asian ASEAN region. We have similar priorities now. We are not looking at each other with suspicion, but now we're looking at the same goals. For example, like solving the crisis in Myanmar, on how to work together as a base of cooperation, and when looking at South China Sea issues. So I think this kind of background and knowledge of him could be the reason for his move untuk not messing with Indonesia and Malaysia, or sustaining the Indonesia-Malaysia relationship. The other one I think would be a good one. I think would be Anis, I guess. Yeah. The reason is because he's more into domestic politics and again workers, and I know for sure that there is numbers of Indonesian workers in Malaysia as well. Not numbers, but huge numbers of Indonesian workers in Malaysia working as migrants. And I believe that with the issue of Java, for example, like there is less protections of migrants overseas. I believe that the combination of domestic knowledge and then the foreign affairs will make a perfect combination. That's what we need from the leaders. And then the rest of the candidates could be the ministry, because you don't have to be the president. You can put the person based on you don't want someone who knows very technical things to be your president. You want your president someone who have vision, who have abstract ideas, who have this broad vision basically about the country. When he talked too much about technical things, maybe it shouldn't be a president in the first place. Maybe it should be the ministry, right? The minister of the country. So I think I like the vision of both, the combination between Prabowo and Anies. Yeah, there is a joke between among us. So if there's going to be a debate between the Cawapres, right? So there's a Cawapres Gibran and Mahfud. And Vice President. Sorry, okay. So Gibran, Cak Imin, and Mahfud MD. So they say that when the debate happens, so Gibran will be the MC, Mahfud will be the speaker, and Imin will be the prayer. It's just a joke because the combination is so plot twist. We think this one will be with this, that one will be this. But then, it happens. But I kind of see the same roots over the PDIP candidates, Ganjar and Mahfud, and the link with Prabowo and Gibran. So I kind of make them fall into the same kind of sphere or spectrum. And then the other one, Anies, is kind of different a little bit because of the background and when he's running for the candidacy, I don't think he get the support from the majority of the big parties in Indonesia. Yeah.
And the second part.
Oh, sorry. There's still the second part. Second part, the development. What was the question again?
Who will offer a different kind of development?
Okay, who will offer?
Model pembangunan yang
model
berbeda.
pembangunan. Following my previous statement, I think Anies and Imin will try to, because they appeal into different groups compared to PDIP dan Ganjar dan Prabowo. So supposedly dia harus bawa ide yang berbeda because he tried to convince there's something wrong with the current president, and then the current president supported by Prabowo and the policy is also supported by Ganjar, right? So I put them put them in the same spectrum, and then the one who underdog or we feel like can make something different would be Anies. But then that's not enough. You need real people who votes, right? So yeah, it's a different story by itself. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before we close, we have a bit of cendera hati, cendera mata, cendera hati.
Cendera hati.
Cendera hati, cendera mata.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is a HI book. This is an international book about matrix perdamaian Indonesia Malaysia. This is more sastra book. Nusantara is I usually co-author with former students.
Yes.
One of them is Raja Ali Maksud. You know him since you were here.
Yeah.
Pasur as well. So this one is on Islamic social science research methodology. Pak Muzakir and my wife as well.
Helm?
So they are
Sabtu katanya. 11.
Boleh datang.
being taught on
Sekarang
Saturday.
Yes.
This one is terlibat.
yang aja memoto banget.
Ini anak.
Oh, enggak ya.
Dia sekarang di print.
Wah, yang ini. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
I'll
you.
make sure this in the library.
Alright. You can give it to
Picture.
Okay, alright.
Ini dia. Saya taruh sini karena dia kayak gitu.
Oke, gini ya. Ya, oke.
Tahu
Lepas tu
Banyak.
rampai.
Bunga rampai. Kipas.
Mana ya? Saya nggak jelas juga sih.
Ini saya bantu.
Katolik. Susah gua. Sana aja tengah background.
Ini yang ada benar. Oh, yang benar. Oke.
Nasionalis.
Kalau Katolik karena dia merasa
Itu yang mana?
Belum lagi.
Hah?
Ada lagi. Oh,
ada lagi.
dari
Wah, banyak.
Mas Dani.
Terima kasih.
Ini
Sesuai dengan
ketua umum yang
Oh iya.
luar biasa ketua
Iya,
umum.
BPI, BPI.
Betul lagi, benar PKD ini. Buka ya. Nah, PKD ini. Oh, kalau sertifikat mah harus iya.
Kelihatan tadi.
Bagus lah.
Orangnya sudah kelihatan.
Sertifikatnya